So the Boston Celtics have made a big deal about the culture they set up and all the incoming picks that they've accumulated over the next few years to pretty much use that as their claim to fame as saying we're going to be the next big dynasty in the East. However, they don't have anything so far to really show for it. They've been the number one seed this year, but they were very unimpressive in the Eastern Conference Finals. And basically, because of these reasons, I really think that the Boston Celtics need to trade their number one pick, at least if they want to compete for a championship in the near future. There's the biggest reason I think this should happen is because there's a lot of uncertainty in the NBA. Incoming players can be locker room problems, they can get injured, they can be busts, and even front office and coaches, they can easily take a more enticing job offer. If the Celtics are, they're already a good team, there's obviously going to be offers that could give them more job security, like a longer contract, or more money for them to just pack their bags and leave. Basically, the turnover in sports leagues is just way too high to try to be preparing your team for more than 3 years down the road. I think 4 or 5 years is just far too much. Collect assets for the next 3, and then don't worry about the years 4 and 5 until they finally come. So in this year's draft, Boston has the number 1 pick and 3 incoming second-round picks from the Cavaliers, Clippers, and Timberwolves. I think you can easily package those second-round picks to a team that's strapped for strapped in the cap space. San Antonio would be a good example because they're trying to unload for Chris Paul. So from them, you can probably get in a late first-round pick, which would be good enough for a rotational player, someone who's solid enough in the second unit to build up some depth. And then from there, I would even try to trade the first pick, like I mentioned earlier. And I would say your top 2 targets should be Jimmy Butler or Paul George. They both have favorable contracts because they signed before the salary cap hike. Just to put into perspective, both are making about 17 to 20 million a year, and that's including incentives and signing bonuses and the such. The average NBA player after the salary cap hike was entitled to about $15 million a year. Obviously, you'd pay Jimmy Butler and Paul George are obviously way more what their contract states now. It's just that there's been kind of inflation in the NBA because of the salary cap hike, and there's going to be another hike coming up soon, I believe. On top of that, they both have good amount of years on their contracts left. Paul George does have the the player option, so he could demand more money on the open market when he gets that. If he declines the player option, and then, try to see what suitors are there or what are chasing him. But I think Jimmy Butler is actually the better trade target of the two. He's got a more favorable contract because his runs all the way to 2020, which is an extra year on Paul George, and there's no player option. And when you get closer to the year 2020, you can always decide to extend Butler then too, to try to retain his services. If you pick up either of these guys, you're not mortgaging your future either, because these guys are going to be with you for the next 3 to 4 years anyways. And no matter who you draft in this year's draft or next year's, they're not going to be there. That player won't have the same production as a Butler or George for at least 3 to 4 years themselves. So you might as well you already have a solid team in place. You might as well try to pick up one of these 2 players. Now, to make the trade work, you also have to give up Jay Crowder, or Avery Bradley, maybe even both, because you need to make the salaries match, right? And if you do this, you also have the opportunity to sign another big player like Gordon Hayward or Blake Griffin. I think Blake Griffin's not too enticing of an offer now, but you can get a big name through free agency because you're still $23 million below the cap space as of now. Picking up Jimmy Butler or Paul George would only bring that up a little bit because you're giving up a couple of players in return as well as the pick. So I don't know, worst case scenario, maybe you'll have to cross the soft cap a little bit, and Danny Ainge is notorious for refusing to do such a thing. But if you want if you want to win a championship, you're gonna have to shell out some extra dollars. So I just think the Celtics already have a good team set in place. They have a good coach, and they have people who really buy into what the coach wants. I think from now, if you really want to compete for anything, you should just try to win. Try to pick up Jimmy Butler. Try to go for the win now or within the next 3 or 4 years, and maximize on your championship window.